Hurricane Julia was a devastating tropical cyclone that caused significant impacts in Central America as a Category 1 hurricane. The 10th named storm and 5th hurricane of the 2022 Atlantic hurricane season, Julia originated from a tropical wave in the tropical North Atlantic Ocean and became a named storm on October 7. It took a southerly course through the Caribbean and passed just off the coast of Venezuela at the time it became a tropical cyclone. Only one storm on record, Tropical Storm Bret in 1993, has tracked further south over South America. On October 8, it became a hurricane and proceeded to make landfall in Nicaragua. It emerged into the Pacific Ocean as a tropical storm on October 10, becoming the 18th tropical storm of the 2022 Pacific hurricane season, and the second storm of the season to survive the crossover between the Atlantic-Pacific Basin, after Bonnie in July. The storm then briefly moved along the coast of El Salvador, before moving inland and degenerating into a remnant low over Guatemala in October 10. Julia brought heavy rains that caused life-threatening flash floods and deadly mudslides in northern Venezuela and much of Central America. During October 2nd, the National Hurricane Center (NHC) began monitoring a tropical wave over the central tropical Atlantic. A broad area of low pressure formed on October 4th as it approached the southern Windward Islands. Due to the threat the developing system posed to land areas in the southern Caribbean, the NHC initiated advisories on it as potential tropical cyclone 13 on October 6. Later that day, after satellite imagery and radar data indicated that the disturbance had attained sufficient circulation and organized convection, and after Hurricane Hunter survey data showed the presence of 30 to 35 mph, 45 to 55 km/h winds north of the center, it was designated as a tropical depression. Strong burst of deep convection developed near the center of the depression as it moved across the Guajira Peninsula in the early morning of October 7, and soon afterwards, it strengthened into Tropical Storm Julia. Afterward, the morning burst of deep convection was stripped away by northwesterly shear, and the storm's low-level center was exposed for the next several hours. When the shear diminished, there was an increase in persistent and deep convection over the center, and the system began to gain strength. Julia became a hurricane at 2300 Coordinated Universal Time on October 8, and reached its peak intensity at 2 o'clock Coordinated Universal Time on October 9 with estimated sustained winds of 85 miles per hour, 140 kilometers per hour, and a minimum central pressure of 982 MB. At 7:15 Coordinated Universal Time, the storm made landfall near Pearl Lagoon, Nicaragua at the same intensity. The system then gradually weakened to a tropical storm as it moved westward across Nicaragua, while maintaining a well-defined circulation and deep convection persisting near the center. On October 9, Julia left the Atlantic Basin and was designated as an East Pacific system. And its center emerged offshore a few hours later. Around 3 hours later, the system completed its Nicaragua crossing and emerged intact into the Eastern Pacific Basin, although it continued to weaken. It maintained a band of deep convection over the southern and eastern portions of its circulation, the areas not still interacting with the mountainous terrain inland. At about 12 o'clock Coordinated Universal Time on October 10, the center of the storm crossed the coast of El Salvador, about 35 miles 56 kilometers west of San Salvador, and then weakened to a tropical depression. Later that same day, Julia degenerated into a remnant low that extended from offshore of Guatemala to extreme southeastern Mexico. Casualties and damage reported Trinidad and Tobago. On October 5th, the disturbance brought heavy thunderstorms to several of the Windward Islands and the Caribbean coast of South America. More than 251 millimeters of rain fell in Trinidad and Tobago in less than a half hour, causing significant flash flooding. That flooding resulted in one fatality, after a woman was swept away and believed drowned. Venezuela. Heavy rain from the storm caused widespread flooding and landslides. In Las Tejerías, in north-central Venezuela, at least 30 people died and 54 went missing when mud and debris inundated the town. Colombia. The center of Julia passed just south of San Andres Island as it was reaching hurricane strength east of Nicaragua. Officials reported that the storm knocked trees down and blew the roofs off several homes. There have been no reports of fatalities. Central America. Julia spawned flooding and landslides that caused widespread damage and killed at least 16 people across Central America, 9 in El Salvador, 5 in Honduras, 1 in Nicaragua, and 1 in Panama. 2 people are missing in Guatemala.